Some stories are more than just a list of things that happened. They have a structure, a kind of life of their own that just grabs you and refuses to let go. So, in this explainer, we're not just going to recount the awful crimes of Ted Bundy. Nope, we're going to actually dissect the anatomy of his story to really understand how pure evil gets packaged into a narrative so compelling you just can't look away. So, let's start with the man himself. This quote, it's absolutely chilling, right? He's not saying he's insane or that he blacked out. He remembers everything. He admits there's this force that would just consume him. That one idea, that self-awareness, is really the dark beating heart of this entire story. And that leads us right to the big question here. We know Bundy was a monster. So why did his story become this global sensation? How does something so raw, so horrifying, get turned into a narrative that we just can't turn away from? Well, let's break down that anatomy.
Okay, so every story, especially one like this, is built around its main character. And the engine that really drives the Bundy narrative, the thing that makes it so fascinating, is this powerful, terrifying paradox.
Just look at this contrast. It's almost impossible to get your head around. The public face is everything you'd want in a model citizen. A law student, a political volunteer, he even worked at a suicide crisis hotline of all things. And then there's the private reality, a monster who by all accounts genuinely enjoyed inflicting pain. That huge gap between the two, that's the engine that drives this entire story. And this quote from a police officer just nails it. It throws out the easy answer. Bundy wasn't crazy, because that's a label that would let us put him in a box and feel safe. The real horror and the thing that makes this story so magnetic is that he was both brilliant and purely evil. So you've got this paradoxical character right at the center. The next step in building the story is to lay out the plot, to show us the path this monster took through the world. This is where the narrative really starts to take shape. This timeline basically maps it all out. You can see the seeds being planted, a really confusing childhood, some seriously disturbing behavior early on. You've got what might be a major trigger, that bad college breakup, and then, boom, the switch flips. He calls himself a predator, and the hunt is on, with police in state after state slowly figuring out they're all chasing the same ghost. So, with the predator's path laid out, the narrative shifts into high gear. We move into the rising action, this desperate, high-stakes hunt to catch a phantom who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. And this was the million-dollar question that haunted law enforcement. Their target was smart. He was mobile. He was careful. He left almost nothing behind. So, how do you stop a ghost? The break in the case wasn't some big aha movie moment. Not at all. It was more like a slow, careful weaving together of different threads. You had the unbelievable courage of survivors like Carol Durange who could actually identify him. You had the gut-wrenching fear of people who knew him, like his girlfriend Elizabeth Cloper, who kept calling the police with her suspicions. And then finally, you had the cold, hard proof from forensics. Each one was just a single thread, but together they wove the net that finally caught him. And in the middle of all this talk about narrative and plot, we have to stop and remember the stakes. 30. Plus, that's the number of murders he confessed to, and the real number is probably way higher. This wasn't a game. This was a desperate race against time to stop something truly unimaginable. The investigation gives us the what and the how, but the part of the story that really sticks with you, the part we can never totally get our heads around, is the why. This is where we search for a motive, where we try to find some logic in something completely illogical. So to even try to answer why, we often turn to psychology for a framework. This one, based on Freud's work, is a classic. The idea is pretty simple. We all have a moral compass, a superego, that's supposed to keep our most primal urges in check. The theory here is that Bundy's compass was basically shattered by his childhood, leaving nothing to hold back the monster inside. It's one possible and really terrifying piece of the puzzle. But as you can see here, there's just never a single easy answer. The search for why always leads you to this disturbing cocktail of possibilities. Was it his chaotic upbringing, nurture? Was it something in his biology, nature? Or was it these chilling psychological tricks, like being able to just detach and compartmentalize, that let him build a wall between his normal life and the abyss he was hiding? Okay, and that brings us to the last and maybe the most unsettling piece in the anatomy of this story, the role of the audience. See, a story isn't just told, it's also received. And the way people reacted to Bundy's story was a whole other phenomenon. Believe it or not, there's actually a clinical term for this: hybrisphilia. It's a real documented attraction to people who commit awful crimes. And you kind of have to understand this phenomenon to make sense of the absolutely bizarre public spectacle that exploded around Bundy's trial. This is where the story just goes from a crime procedural to a full-on media circus. His trial wasn't a quiet, somber legal affair. No way. It was the hottest ticket in town. He played to the cameras, he got fan mail, he literally got married during his own murder trial. He turned himself from a defendant into some kind of dark celebrity. And that says just as much about our culture as it does about him. So there it is. That's the anatomy. You start with a character built on a paradox. You follow a plot packed with suspense. You dig deep, searching for a motive in the darkness. And you wrap the whole thing up in a public spectacle. It's a powerful formula, one that manages to both horrify and captivate us every single time.
And that leaves us with one last, really crucial question to think about. When we break down and consume these stories, are we just trying to understand evil, or are we accidentally giving it a bigger stage? It's something worth thinking about the next time a story like this one grabs the world's attention.